The Last of Us season finale is finally finalized, and its finite runtime sticks incredibly close to the video game's finished product. Thank God that's the final time I have to come up with a new way to say that the show is just like the game. So the show is just like the game in many key areas, from Ellie's detachment to the giraffe scene to even the bloodbath at the hospital. But first, the episode begins with something completely new. Ellie's mom. A flashback reveals Anna, who's pregnant with Ellie as she desperately runs away from an infected. The tension is reminiscent of the Quiet Place's gripping pregnancy scene, with Anna giving birth to Ellie as an infected runner bites down on her thigh. Anna's fate may be sealed, but Ellie's fate has just been rewritten. Marlene finds her cradling Ellie in her arms, and she begs Marlene to take Ellie and raise her. Ashley Johnson, the original voice actress for Ellie, tugs hard on the heartstrings with her performance. Although it is a bit strange as a fan of the video games to hear Ellie's voice come out of her mother's mouth. As tragically effective as this scene is, it does pinpoint one of my larger problems with the series as a whole. The video game's subtlety is lost on the show. That's not to say that the show isn't filled with its own subtle nuances, but the video game found ways to dish out more information on the world via collectible documents and set dressing, while still leaving more compelling aspects of the plot as subtle hints and nods. The show literally shows the player what happened with Ellie's mom this time, along with making David's despicable nature more overt. There's also the way they flat out tell the audience how the infection spread, despite the hints they gave up to that point. Or how the show creates more scenes to show how evil Joel can be to prepare audiences for the end. While none of this is enough to ruin the narrative, it comes across as a show not trusting its audience enough. However, it's immediately after this scene where the TV show uses television's strengths to tell the story through new, compelling angles. Joel and Ellie's disconnected conversations leading up to the giraffe scene are now shot through Ellie's perspective. The audience hears Joel's muffled sounds in the background as Ellie is deeply lost in thought, knowing she is getting closer to the end of her journey. The dialogue here is expertly crafted. Joel has finally embraced Ellie as family, and the dialogue says it all. There is a warmth to Joel's voice that we haven't seen since the first episode before the apocalypse. With dialogue this good, it's unsurprising to see Neil Druckmann return with a writing credit for this episode. The giraffe scene shows another beautiful side to the apocalypse that The Last of Us never shies away from, despite how depressing the story can get. It's a point of no return for Joel and Ellie. Joel believes they could just forget all this and leave now. Now he deeply cares for Ellie like he's never had with anyone since Sarah. But Ellie isn't willing to give up this close to the end. It's around this time where Joel and Ellie have a deeply personal conversation that shows how much Joel has changed. The conversation's catalyst in the video game is a picture of Sarah that Tommy tries to give to Joel, but he refuses. Ellie holds on to the picture and gives it to Joel after the giraffe encounter, where he finally accepts it. And in turn, accepts love back into his life in the form of Ellie. She is now the reason he keeps fighting. The TV show's catalyst for this conversation is Joel's bullet wound on his head that Ellie questions throughout the series. Ellie makes a joke out of it as usual, but this time Joel confesses that it was his own bullet that made the scar. Joel tried to kill himself after losing Sarah, but flinched for reasons he still doesn't understand. From then on, he closed his heart to the world with a broken watch and a bullet wound to remind him of why. If it wasn't for Ellie, that psychological wound may have never healed. A flashbang ruins their bonding session and brings the audience towards Joel's big decision to quote-unquote save Ellie from the Fireflies. Ellie can bring about a cure for the cordyceps virus, but it means she has to die for it to happen. Joel won't let her die, no matter how many potential lives could be saved with a cure. Joel finally found something worth fighting for thanks to Ellie, and he wasn't going to let the world take anything more from him. This frustration sparks the old Joel. The dangerous one Tommy and Tess knew between the 20-year gap. The show's depiction of Joel's shootout against the Fireflies inside the hospital is made to look like a massacre. No more panic attacks for him here. Joel kills everyone who stands in his way with ease. The music is somber, the camera work is surgical, and Pedro Pascal's performance is cold. It's easy to get lost in the gameplay challenge this sequence provides for players, but for viewers of the show, they are forced to witness the kind of monster that was always inside Joel. Like Will Smith once said, love will make you do crazy things. This culminates with Joel reaching Ellie with only a doctor in his way. Kathleen is questioned in episode 4 whether she'd kill a doctor, and she quickly answers with a bullet between the eyes. Joel is no different. A brutal stabbing with a scalpel in the game becomes a quick pop to the head with Joel's pistol for the TV show. It is so fast that the audience doesn't even get a moment to question it, because Joel has already made up his mind and moved on. It's not a dramatic kill like the game stabbing, it's soullessly blunt. The simplicity of the kill speaks volumes to what is going on in Joel's head. This same kind of cold-blooded nature is carried with him when killing Marlene. Joel will do whatever it takes to protect the ones he loves, that much is very clear. The editing that reveals her death mirrors the game's storytelling, and the rest of the story stays true to the source material, right down to the shot composition. Ellie, who was knocked out during Joel's massacre, questions what really happened, and Joel easily lies to her. Ellie wanted to be the one to save everyone. Where her Fedra trainers threatened a mundane future for her, her immunity made her special, but it also cursed her to witness everyone she cared for die from infection. Ellie had made peace with death if it meant saving the lives of others, but Joel robbed her of that. Joel's failed suicide explains his perspective on survival and what good can come from not giving up. However, this clouds him from ever seeing Ellie's contrasting perspective on the matter. Joel lies because he wants to protect her at all costs, but Ellie never asked to be saved. While what Joel did was a savage and selfish display of villainy, it's also one of the most honest and human reactions I've seen in any fiction. It's easy for the audience to demonize Joel and say what they would have done differently, but if anyone was actually put in his shoes, they'd probably do the same for the ones they love too. The season finale sets up Part 2's story nicely and nails Part 1's key story beats with incredible accuracy, despite the show over-explaining certain areas of the plot. Although the season as a whole doesn't reach the highs of its first 3 episodes ever again, it's hard to deny that HBO's prestigious rendition of The Last of Us is a high bar for television and a high bar for video game adaptations.